It's still Christmas for me, and Aaron Nesmith is going to be a present for the Pacers at some point soon-ish. How will his return change the Pacers' rotation? Plus, Jimmy Butler, De'Aaron Fox, Pacers' involvement there at all. And we'll talk about the Thunder, the Pacers' opponent tonight, all coming on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, y'all, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, the last day of me not in my normal studio setup, so hopefully the audio quality is great. And we have much to discuss on this, again, last one before games resume for the Pacers, and there's even more to discuss. They'll play OKC tonight. We'll get to that at the end, because I think the Thunder are a fascinating team and a great measuring stick for how well the Pacers are really playing. I want to talk about Jimmy Butler and his availability, and if the Pacers could or should have involvement, and a little De'Aaron Fox. But I'm going to start with Aaron Nesmith, who has not played since November 1st, approaching 2 months. If he does return soon, what will that mean for the Pacers rotation? How could it shake things up? Getting a lot of questions about the length of this. I don't think ankle injuries being this long is that unusual. I mean, like severe ankle injuries, to be clear. Like Max Strus had an ankle injury in camp for the Cavs, and he's only played 2 games this year. He just returned late last week, I believe, maybe early this week. I can't exactly remember. Yeah, his first game was December 20th, right? That was over 2 months for him. Like, I don't think it's that insane that this is the Nesmith timeline. So my impression, just from hearing what we've heard from the coaching staff and reading the tea leaves, is that it will be potentially later this month, maybe early next month for a Nesmith return. Every time I can see him doing stuff on the court, it's more and more. Regardless of the timeline, it's going to change things for the Pacers, and in a very interesting way, as their team dynamic has really shifted in the 2 months without him, because they haven't played well for large stretches of it, are currently playing well. A guy who did play well right after the injury is now not playing as well. Some of their young guys are basically everybody he would potentially dislodge from the rotation or shake up their minutes is young and growing. There's just a lot of layers to this, right? So let's actually work backwards and start with this. It's kind of hard to figure out what number I wanted to use when I said, okay, if Aaron Nesmith's going to play, how many minutes do the Pacers, or do I, doing this exercise, need to actually allocate for him? Because last year he played 27.7 minutes per game, and that includes him not starting the whole season, right? He was like the 8th or 9th guy early last year. Remember, there were discussions. Can you believe this? There were discussions before 2023-24, including on this very podcast, about how much he would actually play at all, right? But either way, like early last season, wasn't playing as much, and he still ended up at 27.7 minutes per game. This year, that number was much lower to open the season, in the 22s. That does include, obviously, the game where he played 10 minutes where he got injured, but opening night in the second game, he was under 20 minutes in both of those, and he was at 25.2 minutes per game pre-injury. So even then, down a little bit. So figuring out the exact number of minutes to allocate for Aaron Nesmith is already a challenge, and that does not even include any working in time, any specifics about how many minutes he should play there, like kind of like the Andrew Nembhard return path. But regardless of how much it takes, figuring out where to get these minutes from is actually challenging. And I don't specifically mean should he start or not. I did that exercise last Tuesday, maybe last Wednesday. I can't remember which day it came out. The episode before the one with Derek Schultz, I talked about what I think the starting lineup situation could be or should be for the Pacers. I think Ben Mathurin should keep starting even when Nesmith returns. But I actually think, just given the Pacers' track record, they will try to start Nesmith again at some point, even though I would put some stock into starting Mathurin. Regardless, I do think Mathurin's minutes are going to take some sort of hit. I don't even mean that to say he hasn't played well. He doesn't deserve time, right? Mathurin pre-Nesmith injury this season averaged 25.8 minutes per game. That's fine. That's a pretty good number. 26 for him is about the health level I would expect for Mathurin. That's 26.8 minutes if you include the game Nesmith got hurt in, but Nesmith only played 10 minutes. Then they needed Mathurin to step up. Mathurin's at 32.9 minutes per game for the season, right? They've needed him to play a ton, and that also obviously includes games with no Ben Shepherd, with no Andrew Nembhard. Of course, his minutes are going to be nearly 33, but he's a guy who could take a hit from this. But let's back up. I'm getting too granular about this. Mathurin's still going to play and play a lot, and I would start him. There are 10 guys, so there's 240 minutes teams got to fill in a game. Aaron Nesmith's going to get 20 to 25 of those, maybe even more than that. There are 10 guys who, since Nesmith's injury, have played serious minutes. You can count Quentin Jackson's 11th. He's only played 14 games in those 2 months. Everyone else is either going to keep playing a lot or played a lot more than that. And that's Haliburton, Siakam, Mathurin, Turner, Nembhard, Shepard, McConnell, Toppin, and Walker. Those are the 10 guys I'm going to use because their minutes per game averages since Nesmith's injury add up to 243. That's basically our rotation. So we can use those numbers to kind of build backwards. So how do you get to 20 to 25 minutes for Aaron Nesmith? If you take 6 or 8 from Mathurin's 33 and get down to where he was last year or even early this year, that's only 6 minutes. You still need 15 to 20. How are you going to do this if you're the Pacers? And there's a couple questions you have to ask, I think, if you're the team. Do you want to only play 10 guys? Are you willing to play 11? How comfortable are you playing small even after trading to acquire another center? And who should start? And I already answered the third one, but I think those are the important things to answer because one easy route to getting him to play is just straight up removing someone who's currently playing from the rotation and say, Aaron Nesmith, you're now playing instead of whoever that player is, right? I think the easiest answer to that is the guy playing the least recently, and that's Jarace Walker. Jarace has had an up and down year per his own admission, and is probably the 10th guy now that Shepard's back. I think that's very easy to argue if you look at both of their minutes per game since Shepard returned. Shepard played 16:30 in Phoenix. Jarace played 5 minutes and 19 seconds. Jarace played a tiny bit more in Sacramento than Shepard did, but he was on the floor for garbage time there. 2 minutes more, in fact. And then Jarace Walker played 4 minutes and 9 seconds in Golden State. Ben Shepard played almost 11 minutes. Clearly, I think the pecking order has been Shepard above Jarace Walker. And I've kind of made my own assumption on this without actually asking that the reason for that would be I think they think Ben Shepard gives them a better chance to win, and they're acknowledging they're trying to develop Jarace Walker too. And early in the season, they could kind of toy with both. That's what they were doing, right? If you remember, they were playing like separate halves of games. Ben Shepard in the second half, Jarace in the first, or vice versa. But now that they fell into the hole they did, they have to focus a little more on the Ben Shepard type than the Walker type. So one way to play Nesmith some more minutes than the 6 to 8 he could steal from Ben Mathurin would be to take Jarace Walker's rotation spot. But the problem with that is that's not that many minutes, right? If it's only 5 or 10 minutes in a game you're getting from Jarace Walker, that still isn't enough to play Aaron Nesmith what he needs. If you take 4 from Ben Shepard also, you have a 10-man rotation. Then you've moved Jarace from the rotation. And if you take a few from Ben Shepard, who, since returning, is playing 20.7 minutes per game, I think it'd be fine if Ben Shepard is playing 15 instead to get Aaron Nesmith on the floor. That is maybe what I would guess will happen, is that Aaron Nesmith, to get to his 20-25 minutes, will take some from Mathurin, maybe all of Jarace Walker, maybe not if they do what they did early in the season, but then that leads to another discussion, and then some, but not all of Ben Shepard's minutes. That's how you get Aaron Nesmith to where he needs to be. But here's another way you could think about it. Is what if they want to keep doing what they did with Jarace and Shepard, where they're both playing 8 minutes a game, then they'd play 11 guys. Does that actually work? 11 is too many to me. In the NBA, you have too many guys coming in and out for short stints. It's hard to get rhythm there. But they do have a lot of goals for guys who want to play at the swing spot. The other option that I'd like to float out there is not playing Thomas Bryant. I think this could actually be a way to make the 10 players be the starters. So Haliburton, Nembhard, Mathurin, Siakam, Turner. And then the bench be McConnell, Shepard, Nesmith, Walker, Toppin. Not all at once. They haven't gone to that as much as they did last year. But they have gotten away with Toppin of the 5 this year at times. And it's worked out. And so perhaps the answer could be that. Take away Thomas Bryant, who's been playing 10 minutes per game. He's played exactly 40 minutes in his 4 appearances since joining the team. And so if you do 16 minutes from Mathurin and 10 minutes of Thomas Bryant slashed away, and then a couple minutes from both Jarace and Ben, but they're still playing, that could get you to Nesmith's real minutes. So I think there's lots of ways this could go. I think that the most likely way, and actually what makes the most sense to me, is that they just subtract a lot or all of Jarace's minutes, but then they're back to the same problem they were at last year of, well, he's probably playing. They picked him in the lottery, but they're trying to win. It's just a very conflicting goal situation. And Jarace has had good games and bad games this year. Do they want to keep playing him? They spent a lot of time switching his position this year. He has helped them in quite a few games. He's playing better than he was at times early in the season. But then who do you take out for Jarace Walker to get minutes, right? It's a very tough question to answer. And this is both a good and bad thing you get from depth. The Warriors are dealing with this too every night. And it's how do you solve that? And part of my thesis for Jarace Walker playing more this year was that there's going to be way more injuries. Pacers were pretty healthy last year. Well, that's already happened, right? That's been a part of the reason he's been able to play as much as he has. But now what, right? When the team does get back to health, assuming no injuries till Nesmith comes back, that could shake all this up. How do they handle this? I think it's possible that they do the remove Thomas Bryant thing, but they clearly identified they needed and want to play a backup center. They traded for one. So what do they do instead? And that might require what I just talked about. And if they start Nesmith, they can still do the minutes load I just described and even play Mathurin more than Nesmith, right? Their minutes were very comparable last year. And that would be fine too, but you still have to take minutes from someone else. So I think Mathurin's going to play less for sure. I think Shepard's going to play less for sure, but I think both those guys are still going to play. Where the rest of the minutes come from, whether it's Jarris Walker, whether it's Thomas Bryant, whether it's, I guess, Obi Toppin, he's been playing so well that you don't want to do that. That's how the Pacers are going to have to reintegrate Aaron Nesmith. And this might be a tricky thing. He's not going to be playing 20 minutes right away, obviously, right? That is not what they did with Nembhard. That's not what they did with Haliburton last year. If you miss 2 months or even close to 2 months, that's not going to happen. So this might be a little bit premature of a discussion, but I do think it's worth thinking about for the Pacers who have lots of guys deserving of minutes, lots of guys who have played minutes, and lots of guys who will continue to need minutes. Lots hard pivot. Big news on Christmas Day from Shams Charania. Jimmy Butler apparently would like to be traded from the Heat, although hasn't demanded a trade from the Heat. Could the Pacers want him? Should the Pacers want him? Why a trade for him will be really tricky. And the other star, De'Aaron Fox in the news. We'll talk about those two guys and what the Pacers' involvement probably won't be, but maybe could be in a potential move for them. But before we dive into any of that, though, we got to talk about two awesome groups of people. First up, the good folks over at GameTime, the best way to get tickets to the theater, music, comedy, sports, whatever near you. GameTime is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you can bring people together at live events, the experience is so much better, the perfect gift. And GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets to live events even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff and only shows you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. If you do go through those thousands of tickets GameTime has, though, so many great features that you can use or enjoy. They're curated deals. They're super deals. They're seat views in the arena before you buy. They're spot on. They're lowest price guarantee, which means they'll credit you 110% of the difference if you find cheaper tickets elsewhere, and so much more. Like they're toggling off hidden fees so you don't surprise at the end. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time. Also want to share with you guys some things about Rocket Money, who can help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you're paying for twice. It's happened to tons of people I know, including myself. Few subscriptions didn't even realize you were paying for. Rocket Money tracks them down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. And that is a personal finance app that can cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place. Subscriptions, spending habits, goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved over a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving over $740 a year when using all the app's premium features, like that subscription tracker. Their goals features fantastic. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions. Reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockdown today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockdown. One more time, rocketmoney.com/lockdown. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On Lakers. Usually a very popular team anyway, but Austin Reeves game winner on Christmas. Whoo! Love the Christmas games. All great action. Nuggets, Suns about to end. It's on my phone right behind the screen. My many darting eyes. Great games all day. Love Christmas NBA hoops. Let's talk about the stars. The big news of the day, Jimmy Butler from Shams Charania. And there's already been reporting about Jimmy Butler and his availability and all that. But Shams tweeting during Christmas Day about Jimmy Butler and him potentially not even wanting to be with the Heat anymore, right? The exact headline from ESPN is, Heat's Jimmy Butler prefers trade out of Miami, while acknowledging he did not demand a trade. So I've gotten this question before because Jimmy Butler's been brought up in trade rumors anyway. Should the Pacers want Jimmy Butler? There's that hilarious picture from years ago of him in a Pacers hat. I forget what that's from. Either way, let's start with this. I know the caveats. I need to cover them now. Jimmy Butler's really good. It would make any team, including the Pacers, better. by acquiring him. Much better in some teams' cases. And I understand before I do the stupid comments about the luxury tax, yes, it'd be great if every team and every owner, including the Pacers, paid the luxury tax every year. Yada, yada, yada. I get it. Especially if you're acquiring Jimmy Butler. That's the kind of guy you pay the tax for. I get it. It's still something the Pacers are going to think about. I'm going to talk about it because if it's part of their thinking, it should be a part of what you understand about the challenges here. And the big challenge with Jimmy Butler, look, let me be clear again. He's awesome. He would fit right in on the Pacers. I mean, right in. Perfect fit between them, Siakam. The challenging part is money, as it is with most Pacers trades, because Jimmy Butler, his cap hit this season, his salary, $48.8 million. Worth it. He's great. The trouble is the Pacers don't really have anyone's salary to make that an easy trade unless they're willing to give up one of Tyrese, Haliburton, or Pascal Siakam. They both make over $40 million, but that kind of defeats the purpose of the trade in the first place. Right? The point of getting Jimmy Butler, if you're the Pacers, is to put him between those two stars. Make your team even better. Title contenders. Jimmy Butler's gotten to the finals twice. Will his team there by himself. He's amazing. Right? Clearly slipping at his age a little bit, but is amazing. So giving one of those guys up to get him, how does that make your team way better than what the Heat are right now? Right? Now, some would turn around and say, well, that team made the finals twice. And I say, that's true. But that's not when does that ever happen? When has a team gone out to get a star and said, we're going to trade a different star to do this? No, they try to do it without including their stars intentionally. So some of you might say, yeah, trade Haliburton or Siakam for Jimmy Butler. And okay, like that's your thought. That's not really ever how it's gone. So what I would say is you go to the second thing, which is aggregate other player salaries to get Jimmy Butler. And that sounds awesome. The problem is the Pacers' highest paid non-Haliburton Siakam player is Myles Turner at $19.9 million, and then it's Obi Toppin at below 13. Toppin, Nesmith, Turner together is $43.9 million. That's still less than Jimmy Butler makes. That would put the Pacers right at the first apron, which they would be kept at in that trade by taking in more money, and they'd still have to sign a player to field the team. So that wouldn't work. They'd have to include more salary than that, right? So you could take out Nesmith and put in like Mathurin, McConnell, or it's just you get what I'm getting to the point of, which is it is plausible with one of Siakam, Haliburton in the trade for the Pacers to get Jimmy. I don't think they would do that. Not that I'm not even speaking to the value of this. That doesn't make sense to me. But if you go past those two, you get to a situation where you're trading so much of their rotation for Jimmy that it's like, what kind of team are you getting on the back end of that? And is that worth it? And maybe it is. They have a lot of depth to withstand it. But if it does take, Myles Turner plus other players, how good are the Pacers after the trade? And again, I'm not saying they'd be worse. I'm asking how good they'd be. And that's the kind of question you'd get to with the Jimmy Butler trade, is giving up 4 rotation players plus probably a pick or two worth it? Or what young talent would you have to include to make the salaries make sense? What the structure would have to look like to me is, you almost have to, by default of the salaries, have Turner in there and Toppin, most likely. Then what combination of something like Nesmith, McConnell, Mathurin, Walker, maybe even Isaiah Jackson's money and picks would get you Jimmy Butler and like some minimum salaries like Josh Richardson or Alec Burks. And then you have like back end rotation guys acquired and you get Jimmy Butler. Like that kind of structurally makes sense to me. And then you convert a 2-way on a minimum and you can try to stay as close to the tax as you can. It's just really hard. It's really hard. And then what's the Pacers' actual team, right? They have 9 players and they're, and then they have to re-sign Jimmy next year to maybe a bigger contract to keep him, right? His max is going to be high. 35% of the cap is a lot next year, right? So this is not to say they shouldn't pursue him or do it. He's really good. I'm just saying it's not as straightforward as like Jimmy Butler, good. Pacers get him. Yes. Jimmy Butler's very good. Every team should want Jimmy Butler. You can't just snap your fingers and get a guy. So how much salary it would take for it to make sense? And remember, the Heat are over the first apron. They have to take in less money than they send out, which means the Pacers in a 2-team trade would have to take in more money, which means they're going into the tax, right? So how this would have to involve a third team, and the Pacers are already sending out so many guys to even make the salary work that it would be very complicated. It'd be a very complicated trade. And it would likely have to include some good young players and some starters. So it's tough. I got a question today. This is the second one about De'Aaron Fox, who there was some reporting about what his future could look like with the Kings from Sam Amick and I think Anthony Slater in The Athletic. And then The Kings have played bad since then. I mean, yeah, he's really good too. He's awesome. He makes a lot less than Jimmy Butler also. His cap hit this year is a mere, it's funny to say this, a mere 34-ish million. For some reason, my tabs aren't loading. There we go. 34.8 million, right? And so if you just throw together, the Toppin, Nesmith, McConnell group, you get pretty close to that in salary. How good we've seen Fox and Haliburton together. Kind of works. They're kind of subtractive, but Fox is really good. He's been better than Haliburton this year. Fox, Haliburton, Siakam, you need some defense on that team, right? So it's the same question is there. This is more feasible for the Pacers. The salaries could make sense. There's no apron restrictions for the Kings. Both teams are pretty close to tax, so there'd probably be a third team involved anyway. But because the salaries are more reasonable and there's no apron restrictions, it's easier to see this. Can you imagine the Pacers using assets to trade for a star point guard right now? I can't at all because they have Tyrese Haliburton on their team. De'Aaron Fox, again, really good. He's played better than Haliburton this year. No doubt about that. But what does that trade look like to you? And how does that make the Pacers that much better? Are they, if the ball's out of Haliburton's hands more and Siakam's hands more, is that really what they need? Is someone who is not adding to their defensive abilities in the way that Jimmy Butler would? So to say this, the two stars who are available right now, both are potentially available. I don't know any that kind of stuff specifically, but the two stars who have been reportedly become available right now are both great players. Any team would be lucky to have them, Pacers included. There are a lot of hurdles in acquiring them, and a lot of teams have to deal with those hurdles in their own ways, but that's why I can't envision it being either of those two if the Pacers were to acquire a star this year. And the Pacers have to think about what if this is the right time to do that, not because they aren't good. They made the conference finals last year because they're 15-15. And does that kind of team really want to go all in? So we'll see. Things could change. But the Pacers' salary structure, 2 max guys, a lot of fluff, and then some rookie scale deals. It'll get easier for them to do lots of things starting next season when the cap jumps a ton and contracts jump less than that, even though they'll have to pay a guy or two in Myles Turner. After that, it gets even easier in 26, 27. That's a long time to wait, though, to see what your core really is. So they're going to have a lot of timing elements to manage as they build their team. And trading for a star this season, especially after a wobbly start, could be tricky unless the right situation arises. Jimmy makes so much and is older and probably going to want a new contract next year that makes that tricky. And De'Aaron Fox plays a position that they don't really need to be throwing a bag at to get. But if you disagree with me, that's fine. They're stars. They're really good. If you think the Pacers should get them, I get it. It's just a very hard trades to make for both guys. Let's close out talking about the OKC Thunder, who are a fascinating team to me. I'm glad Pacers fans get to watch them. If you haven't watched them this year, you'll have a great time. I'm going to tell you why. Talk about what on earth, who scheduled this Pacers back-to-back. OKC Boston is crazy. And so much more to close out today's Locked On Pacers. Before we get to any of that, though, I'm going to talk about Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. For many sorts of benefits, their generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On Spurs, because Wemby was awesome. On Christmas, I talked about this on Locked On NBA with Wes Goldberg. I was excited for Jalen Brunson to potentially have a Christmas moment, and I was excited for people to watch Wemby. I used to set alarms to watch Wemby last year. I still watch him a lot this year, and he was awesome in front of a huge audience. Oh, man, was he good. Locked On Spurs with more. Even though Spurs lost that game, Wemby was terrific. Okay, Pacers play the Thunder tonight. A team that's going to be mad they weren't playing on Christmas anyway. You want to know something crazy about the OKC Thunder? I can tell you a lot of crazy things, honestly, about the OKC Thunder. They're the best defense in the NBA, right? And that's not really surprising with how their team is built. They have a gazillion good perimeter defenders, right? To take over the Minnesota mantle at the top of the defense. Their defensive rating is 102.9. This is NBA.com numbers. The Rockets are in second at 105.4. That's a 2.5 point difference between their defenses. The Pacers are at 114.3. If they were 2.5 points worse on defense, they'd be 27th. They're currently 20th. If the Pacers were 2.5 points better on defense, they'd be 11th, right? That's a huge gap. Like, impossibly hard to talk about how big 2.5 points per 100 possession is. Like, offensively, where the Pacers are 11th, if they were 2.5 points per 100 possessions better, they'd be 6th on offense. If they were 2.5 points worse on offense, they'd be 24th. Huh? Like, it's crazy how good the Thunder's defense is. And to talk about how you get to that gap, besides like the roster they have, Shea got all defense votes last year, which was silly. He's like their 6th best perimeter defender, and he's a good defender. I don't even mean to say he's not. He's like J-Dub's a better perimeter defender. Dort's an awesome perimeter defender. Casey Wallace is a great perimeter defender. Alex Caruso, who's not going to play, he's out. That's a big deal. Is an awesome perimeter defender. Wiggins is pretty good. Isaiah Joe's okay. Like, they're just awesome. And great. They have the perfect fit hub, spoke, rebounding, and possession center. When they have Chet, they'll have a great defensive center with Hartenstein. They're just loaded with defensive talent, right? Here's why they're so interesting to me, though. Lots of teams do one thing great on defense to get to a good defense. The Thunder are first in the NBA in opponent effective field goal percentage, under 50%. That's insane. Less than a point per shot is insane. And they're first in opponent turnover rate. So they don't let you get up the shots, and they make them really hard. It's crazy. It's an insane duo. You can be like, let's go play OKC. We're going to really hammer in, take care of the ball. Yeah. Okay, great. It's still going to be really hard to score, right? You can't mismatch hunt against these guys. They're just really, really cover a lot of ground. They're really mobile. They're really connected. It's so impressive. Their opponents' 3-point percentage is first at lowest at 33.1 and is second lowest on twos at 50%. There is no weak point. You got to beat them with the way the Pacers do. Random stuff that's hard to guard or scheme for. The Pacers swept the Thunder last year. I think that's probably their best regular season accomplishment from a wins profile perspective. I think they can do it stylistically, but what I wanted to talk about is this is the biggest test of how great they're playing that they could have. The Suns are good, right? But they aren't playing awesome right this second as the Pacers beat them and Devin Booker gets hurt in the game. The Suns did just beat the Nuggets tonight, though. They beat the Kings, who are kind of stumbling. They beat the Warriors, who are stumbling. Those are fine wins, especially on the road. They're good wins. But Thunder is like a wow win, right? And they are awesome defensively. So I can't do what I normally do and say, well, if they take care of the ball, they can kind of neutralize this thing the Thunder do well, or they could get their shots to fall by playing random. That's great. Like, they might turn it over a lot. That's not going to work. You can't knock the Thunder off their identity. You can't. They play so solid every game, and Shea's offense usually gives them a strong floor. To me, the key to this game for the Pacers is their defense continuing to look incredibly good, right? If they can guard enough, and the Thunder are like 8th in offense, I believe. I just had this up. I can't believe I don't have the number right off the top of my head. They're 7th in offense, right? If the Pacers can hold them to like 115, I think the Pacers offense is playing random and strong enough right now that they'll give themselves a chance at that number. If the Thunder score a lot in this game, if they hit 120 plus, which they can do and they do all the time, they're phenomenal, right? They're for my money, they might be the best team in the NBA this year. If the Thunder get to 120, you just lose. In fact, the Thunder are, oh my gosh, they are 10-2 and they score over 116. 116. That's not even that crazy of a number. Their record's insane. This is also a wild Thunder stat. They're 0-2 and they score exactly 116. Even if they score 114 or less, they're 13-1. They're just so good. They are so good. They are undefeated if they concede 109 or less. Their defense is unbelievable. The Pacers have to get to 115 themselves, but if they have to hold the Thunder to 115 to have a chance. And that's why I think I can talk about all these Thunder stats. They've got to make it hard for Shea. No one really stops Shea. They got to make it hard for Shea. They've got to rebound really well because the turnover battle is going to be advantage OKC. And they've got to hold them down somewhat. No one can really do it. Giannis was as close as we've seen this year of a one-man crew beating this Thunder team, but they are really good. They will be a true measuring stick for how the Pacers are doing. And guess what? They play Boston in Boston the following night. Who scheduled this? This is unfair. This is brutal for the Pacers. they might get thumped by Boston, and I'll say, yeah, there's a travel back-to-back against a team that's mad that they lost on Christmas. Good luck to the Pacers, who are playing well and have a chance to prove themselves and get over 500 tonight against the Thunder. We'll be talking about it right here on Locked On Pacers tomorrow. Derek Kramer's going to join us, our only guest show of the week. It's been tricky with the holidays. Thankfully, he's able to join us, and we'll be back in the normal studio, so better sound quality, better background, all that kind of stuff. Thank y'all for watching today and tuning in over the holidays. It's much appreciated. I like that people let me know that, whatever their reality was for holiday situations, they wanted to or did find time to listen. That makes me thrilled, especially in moments where they were relaxing or by themselves. Back tomorrow, talking Pacers Thunder, the very daunting task ahead for the Pacers. Thank y'all for listening. You can find me on Twitter at Tony R. East and this podcast at Locked On Pacers. I'm on Blue Sky at Tony R. East as well. Thanks for listening. See you soon.